Hey everyone, welcome back to another layout update. Recently, I've been doing quite a bit of work on the layout. Almost all of it, if not all of it, has been pertaining to track work. Um, let's get right into it. So the first thing I did was just lay out all of the track, make sure that all of the tolerances and clearances and whatnot were being met, make sure there was enough room between the track for signals, catenary structures, whatever I'm planning on installing on the layout. And if not, making sure that there's a suitable solution if I want to put anything in. Once that was done, I tested all of the pieces of equipment that I felt would be troublesome on the layout and cause clearance issues, and I didn't find any at all. Final track specs for this layout are the widest curved on this layout is 060. In terms of the outer loop, the narrowest curved on this layout is 036 in terms of the switch there and some of the other switches on the switching area, but the inner loop's maximum radius is 048. So generally wider radiuses, much wider radiuses than my previous layout. Not quite 072, but I just felt like 060 was a good compromise between 072 and 050. Next thing I did was start work on electrical. Now my power supply for the layout is a Z4000 transformer by MTH. I'm not the first owner of this one. They're generally pretty reliable. I've had this one in my possession for a good few years and it's served me well. It has two cabs pretty much, so the right handle here, or as I call it cab 1, the labels on here are track 1 and track 2, but for me this has always been the outer loop. So cab 1, which is the outer loop, is the right handle, and that just powers the outer loop. The outer loop is not connected to the rest of the layout. I didn't want to have any switches on the outer loop because I like running Mercs trains and I'd like to get more, and I don't want to have to require all of them to have the double reduction motors. So I'm just going to leave the outer loop without switches, and honestly for me that's perfectly fine. The outer loop is mostly meant for continuous running of fast trains. The inner loop is powered by cab 2 here with the left-hand handle, and the inner loop includes the switching area, so the switching area is not isolated electrically from the inner loop, which I could just have a train running on the inner loop and switch with this train on the switching area and not have to worry about voltage or anything leaking. But if I want to do that, I can just run a train on the outer loop while switching something on the inner loop, which I think most of the time if I'm switching something, I might not particularly want something else running, getting in my way. The only instance where this could be frustrating is if I wanted to switch cars onto a set of road locomotives and I wanted them to be idling here, but that's such a specific instance where I could just use, say, a set of Lion Chief locomotives for that and not have to worry about isolating anything. Plus I'd need a whole nother cab for this, and this would sort of get rid of the elegance of having a single transformer for all of the tracks. In terms of the actual electrical work and feeding wires, I decided to go with putting 4 feeders on each loop and a couple feeders in the yard where they were needed. On both loops there's a feeder here, a feeder over there, a feeder on that far side, and on that other far side, which supplies a good amount of power to the track. I went through with my multimeter and the current is consistent. The trains can run as slow or as fast as I need them to, and even old locomotives can crawl on the inner or outer loop and not cut out, which is exactly what I've wanted. Since I like to run things, occasionally like to run things prototypically slow, like this switcher locomotive with 2 boxcars, I had it running on the inner loop and it was able to do a really nice crawl. And this thing is from the 70s and it uses a AC motor, which goes to show if you keep your track relatively clean and you have enough feeder wires and your track is screwed down and whatnot, you can have a pretty reliable railroad. But in terms of feeders for the switching part, there is one feeder over there and another feeder over here to kind of give each half of the switching area of the layout a nice supply of power. The next challenge was super elevating the track. As you've seen previously, I sort of did I wouldn't say exactly crude, but a unfinished super elevation job, mostly just getting the concept in the last sort of testing phase of the layout before I started to put things down for real. This time I'm actually doing a sort of solid wall to lift up one side of the track to sort of give the banked curve look. I don't know if you can really see on camera, but it is very slightly banked this way. I don't have a specific degree of banking. This just looked realistic to me, and it's what I could conveniently make. The banking, I've seen some people do this and they've used like cork road bed or some other technique. Some people who have track that just have ties and no road bed individually take every tie and modify it so that it will tilt. What I ended up doing was taking these little wooden strips or sticks. You can get a bag of these at a hobby store for a very, very cheap price. A few dollars can get you this whole bag, and it's more than enough to do a good few curves. What I've done is stack these up 2 high on the outer loop and 1 high on the inner loop, because of course the outer loop is meant for fast running. The inner loop is more just meant for slower running, and I feel like 2 high would be a little steep. So I ended up having sort of the standard for the outer loop be 2 sticks high. Again, I don't have a actual measurement for that. It probably varies on your layout anyways. So for all the big curves on the outer loop, it is generally 2 high, except for here where it sort of gradually goes down to 1. And then on the outer loop for these curves, I put a strip of just 1 high behind there. On the inner loop, I didn't super elevate these at all because, again, you're not going very fast on the inner loop, and it would look kind of weird if I had these curves banked the same as the wider curves, or the longer curves, more accurately. I've neglected to mention the way that I figured out where to put the sort of wall of wooden sticks to create the super elevation. I basically, well, I didn't have the track screwed down yet, but I took a Sharpie marker and just sort of lifted up the track a little bit and traced just under it so that I would get sort of the inside of the outer edge of the track, and then just use that as sort of a rough guide. It didn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I tried to get it as accurate as I could, and I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm not really complaining here. The track was all secured down with wood screws of various types depending upon the uses. It does the job fine, and whenever I need to, I can easily take up the track and work on it. Now I'd like to do a little bit of a run after this update, which is sort of a first for the channel. I just thought it'd be interesting to do. But you'll definitely notice, and you probably have already noticed, this beautiful passenger train that's on the outer loop. And it's a MTH Burlington Zephyr. I wish I could say it's mine, but it's technically not. I do occasionally take it out, and I do sort of take care of it sometimes if it needs maintenance. But it isn't run a whole lot. It's one of those things where you keep it in the box, and it's sort of a pain to get in and out. But once you get it out, you want to leave it on the layout for a while before putting it back up and not touching it for a while. But this whole set has not made a single appearance on the channel, despite it being the probably the nicest train that has run on the layout. Parts of it have made appearances in videos, but the entire set has not run in the channel, so I thought I'd rectify that by running it in this session. So enjoy the trains, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!